There is comfort in repetitive movement. A yogi would say, I am practicing yoga. Perfection is never the goal. The process and what we learn about ourselves along the way is what matters. Stitching is like that. We carefully select our fabric, choose just the right floss, and we gather our tools, the scissors and needles. Then we take a seat in our favorite chair and begin to stitch. The needle goes into the fabric and comes back out. It goes in and comes back out. Stitch by stitch, we make beauty and find comfort as we stitch. There it is. Look at how handsome you look. Arch, wait, you gotta say hi to your FlossTube friends. Let them see how handsome you look. And you're celebrating. What is it we're celebrating, Archie? It's 1 year anniversary on FlossTube. How about that? You're so happy about it, right? Hi, everybody. Hang on. Let me let him down, but I got to take the party hat off because I don't think he'll appreciate it later on. All right, bud, you can jump down there. Hi, how are you? I'm Jackie. Welcome to FlossTube, episode number 17, the anniversary edition. That was Archie. Nice to see you guys today. It is May 24th, 2025, Saturday here in Weston, Missouri. And yeah, 1 whole year on FlossTube. I think May 24th last year is when I put out that first video. And oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much. I never, ever could have imagined how my life would change, open, what it would become by sitting down in front of my phone on a tripod here in my living room, in my stitching chair, no less. I never could have imagined how my life had changed. So I would change. So for the better. Let me just say that, for the better. So thank you. Just thank you so much. I have learned so much in this past year and grown as a person, I think as an artist, and certainly as a stitcher and a person who makes things. So just really thank you. I'll probably have more to say on this whole topic of doing, I know I will, of doing FlossTube and on my projects and stuff as we go along. But I just really, I'm so grateful for everyone who comes back time after time. So if this is your first time here, welcome. As I said, my name's Jackie. You just saw my 9-year-old Scottish Terrier, Archie. Can you believe I got him to wear a hat for that brief time? He was a good sport. But yeah, a beautiful spring day here today. It was actually forecast to be cloudy and we still have rain in the forecast, but the sun decided to come out today, which means that there are a lot of people in town. So you may eventually hear some people. Archie might think that he needs to bark at them. I live right on Main Street in a little town in northwest Missouri. And there's a lot that goes on here, especially on a weekend and on a holiday weekend. So that's where we are. FlossTube number 17. Today I have the usual FlossTube content. If you're new to FlossTube, this is a video all about my love of cross-stitching and the things that I'm working on. Some people do other crafts and they choose to share some of their progress on those projects too. I just have cross-stitching, and I'm just looking around here. Right outside the camera view, I have a chair that has everything kind of stacked up on it that I'm going to show you today. And I have a list of notes right here to my left. And so I have no finishes to share. It always takes me a while to have a finish because I tend to work on large things. Again, if you've never been watching a FlossTube video before, we often share what we're working on, what our plans are, if we have been to a retreat or on a trip, and maybe we've got some acquisitions, which I do have today. I have some additions to my linen library and my floss library, and a couple of new charts that I want to share with you that I think you might really be interested in. And then in my last video, since I knew this was going to be the year anniversary, I asked you guys to just submit any questions, burning questions that you've had for me, things that maybe I haven't talked about in the year since we've been chatting together. And I got quite a few. So I cut them all apart. You can see them all in this little basket. I think there were about 20. Hopefully I can get through those, but I'm going to leave those till the very end, just in case that's not something you want to stick around for. But I also have something I do want you to stick around for. I have a giveaway today as my gift of thanks to all of you. There's only one thing, so one lucky person will be getting a gift today. But I think I'll put that in, I've got that kind of slotted in after I show you my stitching progress. So speaking of that, let's just start on that. I have 4 things that I'm going to show you today. One that I've primarily worked on, but some other projects that you've seen before that I do have some progress on. So let me get my glasses on so I can see, and we will start. I'm going to start by sharing with you progress on something that is actually a stitch along. It's a Barbara Anna piece that I'm working on along with Sarah of the channel Sew Me Sarah. If you're not watching Sarah, you should be. And she and I are working on a year-long stitch along called The 4 Seasons by Barbara Anna. And this is that design. You can see it's 4 ladies. And in this case, they're all lined up together. I'm doing mine separately. And this was a kit that originally came out some years ago. And Barbara Anna did not have the rights to it, and she reacquired the rights to this. It's available through her Ko-Fi shop, which I will link to below. You can also get to it by going to her Instagram page, and there's a link to her Ko-Fi shop there. That really is the only way you can get this. It's not available from any of the other outlets that carry Barbara Anna designs. And it is a digital download, so it's a PDF. But what Sarah and I are doing doing one of these ladies every season. We started last December with the Winter Girl, and now we're working on the Spring Girl, this girl right here that has all of the pink. And as I said, I'm choosing to do mine on separate fabric. I did my Winter Girl on a very deep blue, and my Spring Girl, I'm working on this light yellow color. So there she is. Last time we were together, I didn't have any progress on her, but when I first started her on the spring, first day of spring, I got her head and the top part of her bodice done and her arms. So all the rest of it I've done. Just this past week, I started really working on her in earnest. And one thing I will tell you that I have changed, and if you're new here today, I tend to make color changes, but I did change her hair color. In the chart, you can see she has pink hair. Now, the pink that is called for, I just didn't feel like I was getting enough contrast between her skin color and the pink hair and the pink and this fabric, which is 40 count, by the way. It is called It's a Swan Bay fabric from my friend Marie at Swan Bay Fabrics. It's called Mary's Sampler, and it actually is more of yellow than it's showing here on screen. But like I said, that pink color for her hair, just, I wasn't having enough contrast. So I had it all done and I took it all out. And I kind of went with one of the colors. Not exactly. I went in the same color family as the called for floss. There's a lot of floss here. This is all the flosses for all 4 girls right here, but many of them actually are in this spring girl. And the color I changed her hair to was an Anchor floss, actually, Anchor 1049, so she got red hair. And there's some highlights in it, which is a gold color that's used in this little tiny house down there. That is a DMC 782. So those of you who like to know what I'm changing things to, that's what I did for her hair. The rest are called for colors so far. And boy, that bright green, really bright, this one down here. That is the end of her dress. So I've made it all the way down there. I really love that turquoise color there. So that is my spring Barbara Anna 4 Seasons. And I need to get her done because it won't be long that we will be celebrating the summer solstice. So yeah, get her done because that's when we'll be starting on our summer girl. Like I said, this is something that Sarah and I are doing with the seasons. We've been starting on the official beginning of each season. So we did winter at the winter solstice, spring at the equinox, we'll do summer at the summer solstice, and then autumn at the autumnal equinox. So you're welcome to join us if you have this chart. Some of you I know are following along and sharing what you're doing on Instagram, and we appreciate that, seeing your progress. We do have a hashtag that we're using for this. It's hashtag BA, the number 4, seasons, SAL, and I'll run that below. And I know hashtags on Instagram don't work as well as they used to for you to be able to follow them. But if you do want to use the hashtag so that others might be able to look up what you're doing, and certainly if you want to share on Instagram, we would love it. Both Sarah and I would love it if you would tag us so that we can see what you're doing. People are doing a lot of color changes, fabric changes. Some people are just putting all of their girls on a neutral fabric, just like the chart indicates. And it's just fun to see what everybody's doing with the Barbara Anna 4 Seasons girls. So that's my progress on Barbara Anna the 4 Seasons. Next, I worked on a Quaker sampler. Yeah, it's in this one. That I have in a Stitch Folk tomato bag. And I was digging through some stuff the other day and found this strawberry. I mean, it just kind of went red. But this tomato bag from Barry at Stitch Folk. And Barry, I'm thinking of you, sending you good thoughts. Barry's got some major challenge in her life right now. She could use the good energy. I am working on this Quaker sampler. Sorry, let me get it out of here. One that you can see and I don't have to rustle a bunch of plastic. This is called the Beatrix Potter Quaker sampler by Stitchy Box. This also is a PDF download. I just like to work from paper charts, so I print them out so that I can use highlighters to highlight where I am in the chart. So that's the chart, and get my floss out of the bag here so I'm prepared. I'm working this on a piece of 46 count linen. It is, excuse me, I just knocked the camera, I apologize. It is a seraphim linen called Moon Shadow. And here is where I am. Just making sure that's all in the screen. Show you that part. So I start in the upper left usually. This one I started in the center. And this motif right here is the center. Then I worked my way over to the left. And now I've gotten all the way over to the right. So you're now seeing the full width of that sampler. And this is 46 count, as I said. If I had done it on 40 count, I would have had a little, I could have done it on a 1/4 yard of 40 count, but my margins would have been pretty tight. Quaker samplers tend to be kind of large. I don't know why, but they do. And so I chose, and this is my first time stitching on 46 count, and it had has very quickly become my favorite count of linen to work on. So you'll see when I get to the additions to my linens that I've got some 46 count to add to it. But since we saw each other last, I've added here, I went from the center over to the right. I had started that motif when we saw each other last, and I finished that, obviously. And then I did the one to the right of it and that little one on the side. So as you can see, I'm working this in a kind of a gold color family. The called for color was just one, kind of a corally color actually. But my favorite time of year is autumn. I just love all those colors. And as I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with this, I just kept being drawn to all these different gold colors that I had in my stash. So here are the flosses that I'm using. And I've got some silks here, some overdyed silk, dinky dyes, and classic Colorworks Belle Soie. I've got a Weeks color here, Gentle Arts, and classic Colorworks, and some DMCs too. So I just pulled everything in my stash out that seemed to be in the same family and kind of really coordinate well together. And I'm just picking and choosing as I go. And I started with that center motif, was a color and cotton color. I started with that and then just kind of started picking. And I'm really enjoying how those colors are playing with each other on this linen. The linen is it's hard to tell how you're going to be seeing this because all linen looks so different on screen. It is kind of a warm, very light neutral. I like to think, in real life, it reminds me, I've said this before, of kind of a French vanilla almost ice cream. It's not that yellow, but it kind of is. It's really hard to describe, but it's a beautiful color of linen. I would love to have some more. I got this piece at Country Sampler in Spring Green, Wisconsin last year on a trip there, and I have not found it since. I've looked for it online. It's always out of stock, so I don't know if this was just a special linen color that they did very briefly, but gosh, I'd love to have some more. Seraphim Moon Shadow. I know there's Fiber on a Whim, I think, does one called Moonstone. I don't have a piece of that, so I don't know the color, but this is Moon Shadow by Seraphim. If you ever come across it, I think you'll like it. I started that right before the first of the year when I was with some friends, and I'm gonna include their initials as I stitch this. So we talked last time when I showed this in my last video, we talked a lot about Beatrix Potter because I had gone down, and no pun intended, I went down a Beatrix Potter rabbit hole and was really learning a lot about what an amazing woman she was. Kind of one of those women who was before her time, very progressive for the time that she lived in. She was born in 1866 and lived up into the I'm going to say the 30s, maybe almost 1940. So she would have seen a lot happen in her lifetime. She was from England, ended up living most of her later adult life in the Lake District. Her family vacationed there, and she really loved that area of England, and was instrumental in preserving part of the land there in the Lake District. And many of you recommended that I watch the movie Miss Potter. I had seen it when it originally came out, but I couldn't remember the actress. I could see her in my head when we talked last time, but I couldn't remember her name. Of course, it's Renee Zellweger, and she starred in it, and Ewan McGregor played a man who she eventually was engaged to, and was instrumental in helping get the Peter Rabbit books published. And then it was about her life, and it's a really lovely movie. I have since watched it. In fact, I think I watched it the very next day after I filmed my last video. It's on YouTube if anybody wants to watch it. It's free on YouTube. You just have to watch some commercials periodically. But I would recommend it if you're at all interested in Beatrix Potter. The movie, unfortunately, doesn't talk a lot about the watercolors that she did, except for the illustrations for the books. But she was a very accomplished watercolorist. She was a mycologist. She studied mushrooms. She had just some beautiful landscape watercolors that are not children's book illustrations. And the movie did not touch on that part of her life. And for some reason, the movie didn't touch on the fact that her father was a photographer and photographed a lot and kind of hung around with some of the major artists of the time. So that was kind of unfortunate, because I think the movie could have really benefited from that aspect too. Nonetheless, it's a lovely film that I would definitely recommend if you're at all interested in Beatrix Potter. So that is something that I really enjoyed and just kind of added to my experience of stitching this sampler. If you're new today, I like to research and know more about the projects that I'm working on. I tend to work on historic reproduction samplers of a type, and I like to research the history as much as I can. And if I don't have any history on the sampler or the person who maybe stitched the original sampler, I like to see what I can do about finding out more. So if you like that kind of thing, you will like my channel, because I like to research. I think in another life, I must have been a detective or a researcher. Not in this life, I don't do that, but actually, my astrology sign, it explains a lot. I'm a Libra sun sign, so that explains the art and the fact that I like things to be balanced and appreciate beauty. But my rising sign is Scorpio. If you know any Scorpios, you know that we're kind of intense. And we like to know why things happen the way they do. What's going on underneath the surface? That's what we like to find out. So it definitely explains that part of my personality, the fact that I've got Scorpio in me too. So anyway, that was Beatrix Potter. And since I've got a lot of Q&A, I'm not going to talk a lot about anything else with regard to Quakers today. We'll delve more into that in other videos. It's going to take me a while to work on that sampler, so there's always more that I will find out to share with you guys for sure as we go along on that. I'll have to find out something. You know, I got to keep you guys wondering, what's she going to show us this time? What's she going to talk about this time? So after I put Beatrix Potter down, I worked on a sampler that I did not show you last time. I have a red sampler going. And if you watch Brenda and Laura, Brenda and the Serial Starter, you know, Laura used to have rules that she would, she had stitching rules. And one of them is you always have to have a red sampler going. And a lot of people love stitching red marking samplers. A lot of those have a lot of alphabets in, and there are some beautiful alphabet samplers that came out of France in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And I'm working on one of those. And this one is called Antoinette, 1894 to 1896. This is what that looks like. A lot of alphabets, which I love. Love alphabets. This is by the European Reproduction Samplers out of Germany. That's where you get this chart. And I just ordered it, came in the mail. And I am working this on a piece of 56 count fabric. This was my first piece of 56 count. And here is what I have. Let me, sorry, I gotta see, I can't see the camera when I'm showing this, so let me get it up close. And then I'll move it. So this is 56 count Shrekie's Tan. We did Shrekie's Tan. Needle Bling Designs is the dyer for Shrekie's Tan. And this is a light tan that has some peach undertones. And I'm working this with silk floss. It's my first time using 103 silk. Let's pull one of those out. And I'm using the color 664. Beautiful, beautiful red. I had no idea how many spools I would need. I've gone through 2 full ones so far. And I'm into my 3rd. So since we saw each other last, I had gotten all of the top done, and I had that letter or that row of script letters all done, and I had started this row of numbers. I got just the 1 through 6 done. So since we've seen each other last, I finished the 7, 8, 9, 0. I did this whole little alphabet here and all of these script letters. So it's not a ton. It was just really, I think maybe 1 full weekend day and a couple of nights of stitching for those. These little guys are tiny. They're not even a ½ inch tall. They're little. But I'm still really enjoying working on this. Still having problems with knots in my 103s. I think I'm just always going to. So that is Antoinette. This is a beautiful sampler as well, but obviously as large as this is, as many. Let's see. I'm just up here. So I've got a lot left to do. But I'm not bored by this at all. I love alphabets. And just for me, the process of stitching is as enjoyable or more so than having the finished product on my wall. I just love stitching. And so every time I sit down with a needle and some floss and some fabric, I'm happy. So, but I am really enjoying how that's coming out. So I know some of you are also stitching Antoinette. I haven't seen anybody post any progress on her lately. If you're working on her, show me on Instagram what you've got done. I would love to see what yours looks like. So that is Antoinette. And then lastly, I almost reverted to my former nearly monogamous stitching ways, but obviously, you know, I worked on 3 other things. But in the time since we've seen each other, I mostly worked on one thing, and that is a sampler called Julia Rachel de la Mare. Let me get her booklet out. That is this one right here. This is by Cross Stitch Antiques. That antique is in the collection of Kathleen Littleton, Cross Stitch Antiques. And this was part of a club, this Threads of History club from Country Sampler. Now, I'm not a member of that club, but after they sent out the kits, they had some extras and had put the information about that in their newsletter, in the Country Sampler newsletter. You should sign up for that because you see some of these things that they have kits for that they sometimes have extras of. And anything that comes from Country Sampler is beautiful. But this was part of their club. Now, this chart is not available to the general public yet. It will be here in 2025. I thought Kathleen had told me it was October, but recently she put up a post of her progress on Instagram, and somebody was talking about June. So it's coming. It's not all that long, and this will be available. So a lot of people I know have been really waiting for this one to be released to the general public. I keep this one in another Stitch Folk bag that Barry made for me. But let me show you my progress, because obviously if I've been working on it most of the time, I think I worked on it about a week and a half, nearly 2 weeks of the time that we haven't seen each other. Ta-da! Here we are. I will get up close here in a second. But when we saw each other last, I did not have the border done. I had, I think, this corner I didn't have finished. Maybe, actually, it might have been most of this row of flowers I did not have finished. But obviously I have finished them. And I put in that blue plant and then this cute little lamb and cross. This one is being worked on a 40 count linen. This is a Mason linen that was a special edition. It was gifted to me by my friend Ray Niles, but it's very close in color to the called for linen, which is Button Box Medium Dark by Mason Linens. Now, I know Mason linens are hard to come by. It's not what was provided in the kit that I received. Hemingway, I'm looking to see if, yeah, Hemingway by Needle and Flax was what was provided in the kit. I was having trouble with that color. I wasn't happy with it, so I abandoned this for a little while. I had started at the end of last September as a birthday start, and I just didn't find myself working on it. Once the initial excitement of beginning it wore off, I wasn't picking it up, and I came to realize that it was due to the color of the fabric. And I just didn't feel like some of the floss colors were popping on it. And so I decided, Ray had given me this piece of fabric, and since it was so close to what was called for, I just decided to do a restart. So I restarted this. And let me show you all the flosses. I restarted this on February 25th. Now I've got a lot of floss here that I'm going to show you. This is mostly, I call this the called for colors and more, because I'm doing kind of my own conversion for this. Called for colors plus some. And I have a few over here on my chair too. I have a few more on another ring. But I love a challenge, and I'm picky about color. And some of the colors, we'll just say this, some of the colors that were called for, to my eye, to my personal preference, and this is just all about my own opinion and preference, I didn't feel like they were a true representation of what I was seeing when I looked at the antique. Now, this particular picture is a little bit out of focus, so I found a photograph of the antique on the internet, and I have it on my phone. And so when I would pull the called for floss, I thought, well, that's a nice color, but it doesn't quite look like the antique. And I was really drawn to the antique. So there's something about each project that you work on, that I work on, that really is what attracts you to want to work on it. And the antique sampler was what I wanted to work on and try and recreate. And some of the floss that was in the kit, I just didn't feel it was accurate, giving me the look of the antique. So I started some experimentation and have come up with my own conversion. It is still a work in progress. A lot of people ask me, can you tell me what you are using? Some of it is called for colors. Some of it are completely different, and I've had to play with coffee dyeing a few things in order to get some of the colors. So it's hard for me to tell you what my conversion is, but if you're truly interested, I can give you, and reach out to me. My email address is always in the description box below. I can tell you what I'm using, what I've changed things to. And I'm happy to share them as I go along, but I don't want to bore people who are not interested in that. But I have used, like I'm using 3 different reds for some flowers in the border where only 1 or 2 were called for. I'm using a couple of different pinks. I coffee dyed a color and cotton pink to get one of the colors. I am using a DMC in place of something. There's a kind of a rosy pink on the leaves of this flower, and it shows up down here. I'm using 2 different things to get that. One is a coffee dyed one. One is cinnamon toast. I was just looking for the color that most closely resembled the image that I had. Here's one of those coffee dyed ones on the phone. And I actually have 2 different coffee dyes here. Here's one, and then I went darker, and then that's the original color of the floss. So it's a lot of trouble to do what I'm doing, but it's really made the project exceptionally fun for me. And one of the reasons why I spent over a week and a half, nearly 2 weeks working on this. Let me show it to you one more time. I think that border is gorgeous. It's such a unique combination with the inside border. As you can see, those flowers are all browns and orange, and the outside border flowers on the outside of the zigzag border are all reds and pinks. You wouldn't think it would work, but for some reason it does work. I'm just so enjoying this now that I've changed the linen color. I'm working with floss that's fun for me to experiment with. Oh, I wanted to tell you something I did on this little lamb. The called for color on that little lamb, I don't know, it was, let me see if I can find it. Eggshell, I think. I think eggshell. I thought that was a little bit too yellow and not quite dirty enough That's why I've been playing with coffee, is because I really wanted some things that looked aged. And I had one of my many experiments with coffee dyeing. I had pulled a DMC floss for something. I think it was one of these interiors of one of these flowers. I was trying to get that color more exact. I pulled off a few yards of 822 and I dunked it in some coffee. So I had two versions of 822. You can see the difference in them. So this is what I ended up using for that little lamb, because I didn't have a variegated floss for this one, and on the antique there was some staining that was evident to my eyes. So what I ended up doing, I kind of went old school. You know how, if you've been stitching long enough, there are a lot of kits, and probably even to this day there are kits that you use like two floss colors blended together to get a blend. And while I'm only using one floss thread over two linen threads for the stitching, anything 40 count and above, you're only using one floss thread. What I ended up doing was blending these two threads. And by that I mean, now I stitch in a row. I stitch like one leg all the way across and then the other leg back. I don't do one full cross at a time. So what I ended up doing for those two floss colors is, for part of a row, I would put the darker one as my first leg, and then I would go back with the lighter one over the top, and it made it blend a little bit. There are a few stitches in here. You know, I know you're not going to be able to see them on the screen, but a few stitches in here that are full crosses with the darker one. A lot of it is the lighter color, but I just kind of went all over the place with those two flosses to give them a slightly mottled look and give the sheep some texture and dimension. So I'm really pleased with how that is coming along now. I'm anxious now. I'm going to skip down. I want to get one of those beautiful lilies in. I'm going to work on that next, I think, the one that's underneath the lamb. I'm looking forward to getting back to Julia Rachel de la Mare. This is a Guernsey sampler from the Channel Islands, which is some islands that are between England and France. Lovely. I know, like I said, I know a lot of you are waiting to work on her. She'll be coming soon. She'll be coming soon. So that is my progress on Julia. That's what I've been working on since I saw you last. It's been a lot of fun, all that stitching. I tend to stitch on nearly every night, not quite every night, but I'm a teller at a very busy bank branch, and like a lot of us, you know, we come home needing to wind down. Some days are very stressful at a bank. They just are. You might not think so, but they can be. But like anybody, I need to wind down some way, and this is a lot more fun than other things. Well, I was going to say a lot less expensive, but no, cross stitch can be an expensive hobby when you like to have linen and new colors of floss and new charts and stuff too. But nonetheless, working on stitching helps me de-stress from a day, and it has become just a wonderful practice for me. It's a contemplative practice, and that's part of what I love about stitching. And I know y'all love that about it too. It helps you de-stress. It helps us be present. It helps us create something beautiful that we can maybe eventually put on our walls. It's just a wonderful, wonderful hobby. So those are the things that I've been working on. I've got some plans, and then we'll go into the my stash enhancement. But right now, I actually want to go ahead and share with you what I'm going to be giving away. That way, if you're not interested in the haul portion of the video or the Q&A, you will at least get to see if you want to participate in the giveaway. I have a project bag that has things in it. So this is some Lori Holt fabric. This is a quilted project bag. And inside it, I put a few of my favorite things and some things that I'm hoping you might be interested in. And these are all going to, this is one gift. Get the project bag and everything I'm going to show you. So let me pull some things out. Because I have quite a few treats in here. So first of all, I have a piece of 36 count linen I'm going to put in here. This is a little 1/8 yard called Tea Earl Grey Hot by Lappin' Loops. Just the right size for an animal cracker. Just saying. I have a Stitch Folk needle minder and a couple of stickers. Just going to put everything back in. I have a little needle box called Stitch Posse. That's also from Barry. I have some floss. A couple of episodes ago, I was talking to you about thread gatherer silk that my friend Gretchen has in her store here in Weston called Flora Legion. So I went down and picked a couple of reds. These are 2 skeins of thread gatherer silk, a warm red and a cooler red. Those will be in here. And then I've got some color and cotton floss, a few different skeins. I had some duplicate colors that were courtesy of Color and Cotton. An order of mine got screwed up and they replaced some colors and they said, keep them or give them away. You do it, you choose. So Color and Cotton floss. Those are going in. And then a favorite autumnal color of mine is going in. That was Autumn Spice by Classic Colorworks. So those are the flosses that are going to be in the bag. And I have some charts. Now I have, over the last year, some charts have been shared with me. And the people who shared them said, keep them or give them away. So I looked through all of those and I pulled out 3 that I'm going to give away. One is this Shakespeare's Peddler. 1 nickel needles. It's a patriotic, which is in season right now. I have a heartstrings samplery chart called Stitcher's Resolution. It says on here, when in doubt, buy more linen and thread. Stitch all day and absolutely no housework. Always start a new project before the last one is finished. And then return to number 1. When in doubt, buy more linen and thread. So heartstring samplery. And then I have Plum Street. So these are just some favorite designers of mine that I pulled charts for. This is called This Is the Day the Lord Has Made, Plum Street. And then I have a chart that's a hard one to come by that I'm going to give away. This is called the Quaker Seasons of Friendship. This one is from Crown and Thistle, which is actually from Dying to Stitch. This is something that they put out. Now, I had seen this a long time ago. This is way before I started on Beatrix Potter. I was starting to become attracted to Quakers, and I saw somebody working on this. It might have been the Seattle Stitcher. I don't quite remember, but I tracked it down, got this, and now I'm going to give it away because I don't think I'm going to stitch it, but maybe one of you will want to. maybe with one of those threads I'm giving you. So those are the charts I'm putting in to the bag. And then I have the last set of wool, spun cotton, not wool, spun cotton, counting pins that I made and gave to people at Sampler Symposium. I had a few extra pairs that I've been slowly giving away, and this is the last one. So those are going in the bag too. And then I have a couple of cards, and I'm not going to show you those. Those will be a surprise. And so that's what I have to give away in celebration of my 1-year FlossTube anniversary. So if that is something you would like to receive, please be a subscriber to the channel. Please be over 18 because I will need to ask you for your mailing address. But leave a comment below. Like, subscribe, leave a comment below. I had a hard time coming up with a keyword to use for this because there are so many different things in here. And I really would have liked to say anniversary, but I know a lot of you are going to be congratulating me. So just use the word strawberry in your comment, and you will be the lucky recipient of this bag of goodies. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I've come to really know some of the regular viewers. I look forward to hearing your comments or reading your comments, hearing what you have to say and what we have been sharing here. I do feel like we have a conversation going on. I've said that before, and it does feel like that. I feel like I'm talking to people I know when I'm sitting here in front of the camera. So anyway, thank you all so much for supporting me. I had no idea what I would be getting into when I sat down in front of that camera for the first time. And it's been just so rewarding, so fulfilling, and I have so much gratitude for all of you. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So I now want to share some haul with you, some additions to my own linen stash and my floss stash, and then I'll go into the Q&A. So if you're going to stick around for that, great. If you're going to move on now, thank you again for being here. I do appreciate you. So let's talk about some haul, okay? I have a couple of charts and a lot of thread and linen. So let me show you the charts first. And a couple of these things, again, came from Country Sampler. Their newsletter always is inspiring. Their store, if you've never been, it's a destination place. You definitely should go. And but their newsletter, they always have some fun things to share. So I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, they were showing this Quaker sampler. It is called AC Bluebird Sampler. It's by Sassafras Samplers, which is actually from the Sassy Jacks, people who own Sassy Jacks, the store. Now, I looked for it on the Sassy Jacks website, and it was always out of stock. And Country Sampler was showing it in their newsletter. So I called them up and said, hey, I want that. It's a beautiful polychrome Quaker, as you can see. And it is a reproduction. I may or may not do this, but since I have started working on Quaker samplers, I have just started acquiring some different charts just because they interest me. And there's always some interesting information that people include in those charts that adds to my body of knowledge about the history of these samplers. Because most people recognize this type of sampler as a Quaker sampler, these geometric medallions. But I've come to learn that there are other styles of Quakers, samplers made by Quaker people also. But I just really liked this one. And and another time I will share with you maybe more information that is in this chart. So that came from Country Sampler. And then I also added another animal cracker that I've been wanting to get. This one is this cute chicken called Henrietta. Loved her. I have a project bag that just has all my animal crackers in it. And speaking of Quakers, I got this one from, who are these from? Ruthie Taylor, Crow's Feet Stitching. Now, I first learned about Ruthie from Michelle, Mama Loves You GB. I watch her every Sunday with my Sunday morning coffee. And she talked about these in her video about a week and a half ago as we speak. But Ruthie is working with the Whitby Museum to reproduce some of the samplers in their collection, and this is one of those. And a portion of the proceeds of the sale of, she has several. I've only got this one so far. A portion of the proceeds of the sale go to the Whitby Museum and helping to preserve their collection. And these were PDF downloads, so easy to get, and you have them right away. But I thought this was another interesting Quaker. And yes, that's intended, that bird, intentionally upside down. I don't know if I stitched this, if I could do that, because I want to look, I want to see that bird right side up. So that is Ann Lister, 1790, that one. And also from Ruthie at Crow's Feet Stitching, I got this one called Sarah Charles, 1859. Those of you who have been with me for a while might see something familiar in that floral border. Guess, do you think, if you've been here, you know, she was looking at that floral border, you're saying, oh, she was probably Irish, because Jackie has talked about that so much. Ever since, well, you know, when I was working on a sampler called Bridget Power, 1840, Bridget, that sampler had no provenance, no information about it. Nobody knew where it came from. Nobody knew where Bridget was from. It was assumed she was from Ireland, but there was no knowledge of it. But this border, that floral border, is on Bridget, and that kind of broke open some exploration that I did. And so now I always see that border, or when I see that border, I always think, oh, there it is again. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. You see it in a lot of places. It was a common border in Ireland, and so I couldn't help but download Sarah Charles, 1859, and I don't know, I might have to stitch a few more samplers. There are 2 or 3 that I know of that have that border in. I might have to have a rosebud border wall and hang those near Bridget. So that's Sarah Charles, 1859. So those are the charts that I have added to my chart library since we've seen you last. And I've added some flosses too, along with the 2 patterns that I got from Country Sampler. I got a few of the new offerings from Market, 1 Weeks and 1 2 Gentle Art. So the Weeks color I got was liquid gold. That might end up in the Quaker. I haven't checked to see. It might be a little too vibrant for my old golds, but we'll see. And then I got from Gentle Arts, I got Chestnut and Cerulean. These were tied up so cute, I didn't want to take them apart, but that's Chestnut and Cerulean. I don't know if you've got those colors yet. I didn't get everything because I just wasn't sure I would use them, but I know I will use those colors, so that's why I chose those. And then, I don't know if you watch a floss tube, Holly Jones, she has a floss tube called Mrs. Jones Stitches. I've talked about Holly before. She stitches primarily with color and cotton floss, and I love color and cotton floss. I don't have a ginormous collection of it, but for a while I was in their monthly thread club, and they discontinued it at the beginning of the year. And so I've just, every now and then, I've been ordering some floss. I hadn't put in an order for a while, but Holly inspired me to do it again. And that's because she put out a separate, like a FlossTube extra video, where she went through her color and cotton threads and kind of made up, like, what are some basic colors that would help you build a color and cotton stash? And that was called Build Your Color and Cotton Stash from Mrs. Jones Stitches. And she put that out approximately on May 14th or 15th. So I would recommend that you go look at that if you're interested in color and cotton threads. And I just grabbed my notebook and started writing down notes of the different floss that she was talking about and how to build your stash. She just went through each color family and said, here are the ones that I most commonly use. And so I just decided to order several of those, and I got my order just yesterday so that I could, which was good timing, so I could share them with you. And now this is not everything that Holly wrote. I couldn't afford everything that Holly shared. I wouldn't be able to afford everything that she shared all at once. So again, I just ordered, I think I got a dozen. And these flosses are 8-yard strands, and they are over dyed. But I find that the variegation in color and cotton floss is very subtle, which I particularly like. Now, for those of you who like a stronger variation, this might not be your cup of tea, but they have some beautiful, beautiful colors and beautiful floss. So I'm just gonna go through these ones that I got relatively quickly here and just show you. This is called Baby Carrots, Ferris Wheel, Red Delicious, a beautiful red wine, like Cabernet color. Brown Sugar. Now this is the most variegated one that I have found because there is some pink in there, but there's also some yellowy brown. That's Brown Sugar. This color, whoo, love it. Hansel. It's kind of a turquoise, but it's more on the green side. Really, I can see this in antique samplers a lot because it's one of those kind of a more prim type color. This is Flurries. Another beautiful color. I like blue. Azure. Battleship. Stargazing. Two at once. Pony Ring. This is kind of a greeny brown. Hay Bale. This one Holly uses quite a bit. Birdhouse. Creek Bed. Warm Gray. And Peppercorn. So that was what I added. The reason I chose these colors, some of them because I just thought I love orange floss. Some of them I thought, oh, I can use this or that in a project I have going on. And then I just, when I was part of the thread club, I was part of their, what they called their traditional colors, I think. Anyway, it was just a variety of colors they were sending me, but I didn't have a lot of browns and blacks, so that's why I got more browns and blacks in this particular order. And then some of the others I just thought I would throw in. Holly talks about Hansel so much that I thought, oh, I'm gonna get that one. And she talked about Hay Bale so much that I thought that must be a really good brown, so I probably need that. Color and Cotton also has started dyeing, was it color families, like a floss pack that is a color family. And I know they've got a color family of this birdhouse, where you get a very light, a pale, a medium dark, and a dark, and they package them all together. Now I just got this one birdhouse, but I know this particular one is in one of those floss packs. So if that's of interest to you, go on the Color and Cotton website and look at all the colors that are available after you've watched Holly's video and made your own shopping list for floss. And I think you would be happy to add some of their threads to your stash. I heard somebody was being interviewed. My friend Sarah Stitchy Spot was being interviewed by the Dutch Stitcher, and she was asked what was her favorite floss. And I thought, oh, how would I answer that? And my answer was the one that's the right color. I like having the right color. I don't have a favorite one to stitch with. I like the one that's the right color for what I'm doing. So anyway, Color and Cotton sometimes is the right color. So I don't think you would be disappointed if you got some of their floss. And so then let's talk about some linens. A couple of videos ago, I was showing the Shakespeare's Peddler charts that I got from Market. That's 2 small sampler fragments. These 2 that a lot of people are working on. Summer and spring sampler fragments. Now, on the covers of these, they look like a warm gray. The called for fabric is something called Dark Soil from XJU Designs. And I did get some Dark Soil from XJU Designs, and it wasn't my cup of tea. It was very, very dark. Dark brown. And I think because, again, as I look at a chart, I'm attracted to it for some reason. What is it I respond to about that? And I really liked this particular one. So it's a dark, warm gray. But when I got Dark Soil, I thought, yeah, it's not how I see those samplers. So then I got on a search for what fabric would I like to do those 2 on. I wanted a dark brown. And I ordered up from Sassy Jack's this color right here called Winter Wren from Fox and Rabbit. It's a nice dark brown. It still wasn't as dark as I wanted. I will definitely find something to use that for. This is a piece of 40 count. It's a browny gray. Not as deep as I wanted. So I wanted something kind of between this and the Dark Soil that I had. And then I was remembering a fabric that I don't recall who showed it. But it was a fabric by Roxy FlossCo, by Kerri at Roxy Floss, who dyes linen and also has a floss, line of beautiful floss, and has a floss club. And Kerri is part of the duo Caroline and Kerri from Evertote's Roxy Floss. They just got done putting on the Stitch North retreats. And I just decided I was going to try out some of Kerri's linen. I watch several floss tubers from Canada who are always talking about Kerri's linens, the Roxy linens, and certain colors of linen come up frequently that they talk about. Some neutrals. So I ordered some neutrals and a couple of colors. And one of those is called French Hen, and that's the one I was remembering somebody talk about. This is an amazing piece of linen. Look at the modeling in that. It's beautiful. It's got some gray, it's got some brown. So when I got this, I thought that is exactly what I want for these. So into a project bag they went. I haven't pulled floss yet, so it's not fully kitted, but French hen from Roxy FlossCo is going to be what I'm going to do these on. This is 40 count. And I'm very, very pleased about that. My God, look at so beautiful. I know some people are not crazy about obvious modeling, but this whole quarter of the quarter yard, woo, love it. Gives me heart palpitations. Hepped up is what Laura would say when she would see that. It's like, oh, I'm really hepped up about that now. Really excited about working on that. And then I ordered 3 different neutrals. I'm going to show you the 3 of them first. Not showing up. Yeah, you can see there's 3 different colors here, a light, a medium, and a darker one. And I'll go through each of them. So the first one I'm going to show you is the lightest one. This is called Panettone. I did pull a DMC floss. I had the hardest time going through my DMC floss and finding anything that was like this. The closest I could come was 3866. And there's just some very subtle modeling in this that I couldn't identify. In some light it was looking a little peachy, and some light there's some brown in there. This is a gorgeous light neutral. Panettone. There. Panettone. Beautiful fabric. And this is 46 count. These 3 neutrals are all 46 count that I'm going to show you. The next one I got, just slightly darker than the Panettone. This is Dirty Porcelain. Now I pulled 2 DMCs for this. 663, which is showing up really yellow on the screen, and 644. Again, I had a hard time finding floss that was the right color. Let me pull it back. Dirty Porcelain. There is some modeling in it, more subtle than the French hen, as was that piece of Panettone, but there is modeling in this. Just beautiful, beautiful linen. I am really happy to have these. I don't have a clue what I'm going to put on those, but wow. And then lastly, this is one of the more popular linens, I think, that they do. At least I see a lot of people using this one. This is called Speculoos. This one is the more mottled and the darkest of the 3 that I got. And I pulled like 4 colors because there's a lot going on in this particular piece of linen. I pulled DMC 3782, 3864, 647, and 3032. All those colors are in there. The base is sort of gray. Then there's some brown. Then there's some khaki. This is more mottled than the other 2 that I have shown you, as you can see. So this is going to give you more of an aged look for those of you who like that when you do samplers. There's a lot more going on here. This is Speculoos. And again, 46 count. So Dirty Porcelain, Panettone, and Speculoos I got as 46 count. Gorgeous, gorgeous pieces of linens. And I've written to Kerri and told her how much I loved what I got in my order. And what really got me excited was the last one. And I'm going to show you and you'll say, why does that make you so excited? But the last one I got was another colored. This is a 40 count. This is called Dusk. It is blue. There's some green in it. There's some cool modeling in it. There you can see some of the green showing up in the light. I did pull a couple of DMCs for this. It was quite close to DMC 3768, and then I got pulled 924 for the kind of green teal color. Why was I so excited about this, you may ask? Maybe not quite a year ago, because I didn't have the chart, I don't think, when I first started. But for a long time, I have had it. It's another Shakespeare's Peddler chart called the Green Bean Sampler. And I have always seen this one done on a kind of a blue, green, or teal color. Now I have an old antique dresser in my bedroom that I painted a teal color, and that's what I've been trying to find. I love the color that I painted there. I did it with chalk paint and color and brown wax and stuff, and I love the way it turned out. And for some reason, I've always seen this with that color of a background. And so when I opened the package and pulled this out, I thought, there it is. Now I can finally start on the green bean sampler. I've had the flosses pulled for a long time. Here they are. Now I may change some of these because I have some extra ones pulled, because I pulled the called for and then some. But I think those colors all will work on this dusk. So I'm really so chuffed, as they would say, and written about this. This is the one that made me excited and want to write to Kerri. So very happy to have that. So I've got a lot of Shakespeare's Peddler stuff that I've got that I want to work on. And that brings me to actually one of my plans that I'm kind of excited, or sad, but excited about. So I have told you guys that I was going to be going to England and Ireland in October, and that trip unfortunately has fallen through. The person I was going to travel with can't go. And given all of the unrest in the world, I don't feel comfortable traveling by myself. And another time I would be totally okay with going by myself, but right now just something about it made me feel like, I don't think the timing is right. So as a consolation prize, it's not England or Ireland, but I found, because I had the time already blocked off, I found a little 2-day kind of workshop retreat at the Silver Needle in Tulsa in October. And Teresa Vanette of Shakespeare's Peddler is going to be the presenter. So I got on the horn and there was a spot available. So I'm going to be going to that on October 8th and 9th at the Silver Needle. So if any of you are going to be there, I'd love for you to say hi and look forward to it. But I really like Teresa's design style. I have 5 things of hers that are kitted. So next year might be the year of Shakespeare's Peddler for me. But I'm going to be doing that as my retreat or special vacation in October. Now it's just a couple of days, but I'm going to go a day early, stay a day late. There's a really great art museum in Tulsa called the Philbrook. I'm sure there's other stuff, but I also I'm such a homebody. I like stay home and have a staycation. So I'm just going to keep my vacation as planned, the time anyway, and stick around. So while I'm disappointed that I won't be going to England and on to Ireland, Ireland is still on the radar, maybe for next year. And so I do still have some leads that I want to follow in Ireland to try and find Bridget. And so that's on the radar. But for this year, I'm staying put in the United States. So there is that. So I've gotten through everything that I wanted to show you. So now I have my basket of Q&A. So I'm conscientious of the time. I'm already a little ways in here, so I don't know how quickly I can answer questions. I will try and be concise with my answers. So, and if I can't get to them all, I'll save them and add some more. So I just wrote each one out on a piece of paper, folded it up. These are in no particular category, order, or anything. So let's see, what's the first one? Do you worry? This one made me kind of chuckle, but I can see why you might. Do you worry about your privacy or security since viewers know the town that you live in and the approximate location? No. I figure if you guys want to come here and try and find me, you know, I'd welcome you in. You want to talk about stitching? Okay. If I'm home, okay. So, but I'm actually not worried about that kind of thing. I don't think any crazies are in the cross stitch world. So, and they'd have to watch a lot of videos and make notes to find that stuff out. So, no. All right, next. Somebody was wondering about my work at Hallmark. So that's the question. I'm wondering about your work at Hallmark. So that was my first job as an adult, was working for Hallmark Cards in Kansas City, Missouri. That's what brought me to Missouri. I grew up in Northwest Illinois, went to a 2-year commercial art school in Denver, Colorado, and I knew I wanted to work for Hallmark. And that came from actually, I always knew I wanted to be an artist. If I was like 4 or 5 years old, if somebody would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? Artist. I'm going to be an artist. I always knew that. And when I was like 15 or 16, I was in a Hallmark card shop at a mall. And it was one of my favorite places to go. I just like to look at cards and look at the stuff that were in the Hallmark stores. And I picked up a card one day and just looked at what it said and the image. And as I did, it made me feel something. And in my head, I thought, I want to do that. Now, that 15 or 16-year-old girl was very literal. I thought that meant, I want to work at Hallmark. I want to make cards. And so that I took that to heart. And when I was in high school, and you know, you have that meeting with the high school counselor, and they're talking to you about, what do you want to be or do when you graduate? We need to be thinking about that. We need to be talking about it. I knew I didn't want to go to traditional college. And I grew up in a very small town. So college was generally what people did, or they didn't. Maybe they went to a 2-year community college while they figured out what they wanted to do. But I was terrible at math. I was terrible at science. And I knew if I went to college, that would have to be part of it. And so I was talking to the counselor, and I said, you know, I just really want to be an artist. I just feel like I want to be an artist. And my parents were aghast at that idea, because you can't make money being an artist. The whole image of the starving artist out there, they just knew that, you know, they wanted more for me than a starving artist. So the guidance counselor had just received a catalog from the school that I ended up going to, the Colorado Institute of Art. It was basically 3 years of schooling and a 2-year all-around thing. And I went there, and my parents were on board with it because they could see that it was practical and I might have a job by the end of it. It was taught me graphic design. That was what my degree was in. But we learned photography, illustration, graphic design, typography, all the things, just design as a whole for a variety of things. And this was before the age of computers. And so since I knew I wanted to work for Hallmark Cards, that would need a commercial artist, I geared my graduating portfolio all based on things that I knew Hallmark, products that I knew Hallmark might do. So we left Denver, came through Kansas City, made a loop before going home, and dropped my portfolio off. They called me and a couple of weeks later and said, we would like you to come down for an interview. We'll fly you down. So I went for a day and a half of interviews. How they did it then was you went through every art department, interviewed with the directors of each of those departments so they could see what would be the best fit for you. And they called me back after that was all over and offered me a job. So I moved to Kansas City at the end of 1980 to begin to work for Hallmark Cards. I started out in a department called Gift and Occasion, which was where we did all of the products that were not cards. Gift wrap, party plates, invitations, centerpieces, stuff like that. And I was just what was called a production artist at the time. I was learning from the ground up of what it took to design those products. And growing up also, I always was copying cartoons. We didn't have art class in school per se, but I was always copying like the Charlie Brown, the Peanuts Sunday comics. I would draw those. I loved the work of a children's book illustrator named Joan Walsh Angland. We don't have the drawings anymore. My mom kept them for a long time, but I would get those books from the library and I would just copy them and redraw them and color them with colored pencils or crayons. There was a Dr. Seuss book called My Book About Me, and it was questions like, what's your favorite animal? Draw it here. So I did that whole book and made my own version of it and did that book. So I was doing Dr. Seuss-like drawings. At the back of teen magazines, there was a school up in Minneapolis that would advertise, and I think it's the one that actually Charles Schultz worked at or went to, where you would draw like this little parrot and send it in, and they would critique it and tell you if you had any aptitude for drawing. I did all of those. I made paper dolls. I just copied. Oh, Muppets. I loved the Muppets. I drew them. I made a Kermit the Frog puppet. So I was always doing that kind of thing growing up. And in the gift and occasion department, we often would get to work on those kind of licensed characters because we did the party wear and the gift wrap for everything. And some of that was licensed characters. And up until, I was there for maybe 8 months to a year. And licensed character products and art was becoming a really more popular thing. And they didn't have an established department that focused on that, but they were creating one. And since that was something that I really excelled at and enjoyed, I was tapped to be one of the people in that department. So that's how I got into the licensing design studio is what that was called. And that's where I stayed for the rest of my time there. I was at Hallmark for 12 years. And so I got to work on all of those products, those cartoon characters. I met Charles Schultz. I met Joan Walsh Angland. I did not get to meet Jim Henson. He passed away before I got to meet him. Some of these people would come to Hallmark. I was in a position where I traveled. I was kind of a creative liaison in our department. I got to travel and meet some of these people. I met Dr. Seuss. I went to his house, had dinner with him. So a lot of these people who were my influences, inspiration, and heroes, I actually got to meet. What a way to manifest, huh? And that's where I met Mary Engelbright. So I left Hallmark in 1992. Mary Engelbright's business was booming then. I let her know that I was interested in working with her more closely, and they hired me away, and I worked for her for nearly 20 years. So that's kind of how that all went. I worked on licensed characters during that whole time and enjoyed doing that because I don't really have my own personal art style. I like to do my own thing within kind of parameters of established parameters. I'll just say that. And I think that's why I like reproduction samplers so much, and why cross-stitching works for me, because you're given the parameters, and then so that takes some of the guesswork out of it, and then you can play with it from there. That's why I'm enjoying it so much. But I like history too. That's why the antique sampler reproductions are interesting to me. So that's my Hallmark experience. If you want to know anything more specific, certainly ask me in the comments and I can elaborate more. This person said, when I just threw down, I thought maybe I'll leave it, but I will leave it for later, but I'll answer it. She says, I'm on a lifelong journey to be a rule breaker. She thinks that I'm kind of a rule breaker. That was another part of her comment. She said, do you have any advice? Yes. I'm not necessarily a rule breaker, but I will push some boundaries. And there was, back in the early 90s, I used to watch Oprah a lot when I was in my art studio working on Mare stuff. I used to watch Oprah a lot, and she had a guy on whose name I cannot recall. He wrote a book called Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And he was also talking about people pleasers and about breaking through that habit of people pleasing. And he said, when you're the only one, you are really the only one who cares. The other people, they know what they can get from you, that you'll always agree, but sometimes that's exhausting. And he said, in your mind, when somebody asks you to do something, or if you're trying to break out of that habit, say, so what? Who cares? So what? Who cares? And so I started kind of playing around with that in my head. And a lot of breaking rules or staying within rules and breaking them is what prevents us from breaking them, as we think, oh, what will somebody think? What? I don't know. What if they don't like me after that? Well, in your head, say, so what? Who cares? Don't let those kind of framework or self-imposed rules prevent you from doing what you might want to do. If I had done that, I wouldn't be sitting here. So what? Who cares? Break some rules. Try it out. My favorite pet in my lifetime. Oh, that's like asking somebody, who's their favorite child? I did think about that. Bonnie Rose. She was the Scotty that I had before Archie. And I hate to say that because he is so special. And if he weren't here and I had a different one, maybe he would come up. But Bonnie Rose, there was just something about her. She was a wheaten-colored Scotty, which is a blonde-haired Scotty. She was my first Scottish Terrier. Bonnie Rose. How did I get into cross-stitch? I can't honestly say that I know. In my family, growing up, we were always making things. My grandmother sewed. My mom sewed our clothes for my sisters and I growing up. She probably did something for my brother too, but she more sewed for my sisters and I, and so did my grandma. We did embroidery. They did embroidery, quilting. And at some point, I might remember Mom cross-stitching. But I think more when I got into it was when I moved to Kansas City. I went to a shop in Liberty, Missouri. I've mentioned it before. It's sadly no longer there. I think it was in a place called the Corbin Mill, and I wish I could remember the name of it. One of you knows because you told me what it was, reminded me. And I think Carol Saltbox worked there for a while. But in that store, they had wool for rug hooking, which is kind of where I got inspired to do rug hooking. They had cross-stitch supplies, and they had quilting fabric and all of the stuff that went along with that. And at that time, this would have been the late 80s or early 90s, Prairie Schooler charts were very, very popular. And it seems to me the ladies who designed some of those original Prairie Schooler charts were from this neck of the woods. But those charts were front and center always at the cash register and in that store. And I think I probably picked up a Prairie Schooler chart and decided I was going to cross stitch that. I had an interest and still do in the Amish. There was Amish communities all around where I grew up. And that sort of simpler life, I think, is appealing to a lot of us. And I remember distinctly working on a Prairie Schooler design that was an Amish design. I did not finish it, but my mom did, and it was framed and in their house for a lot of years. So I think that's when I got interested in cross stitch. And then as other things, I got interested in doing other things. And cross stitch kind of fell out of style. I just kind of stopped doing it until 2023 when I saw my first FlossTube video and I picked it back up again. So it's not a total answer, but that's what I got for how I got into cross stitch. Next question. What was it like working for Mary Engelbreit, and what was your favorite part of the job? It was great. It was great. Probably my favorite part of the job was the paper dolls, because I did most all of the paper dolls that were in the Mary Engelbreit Home Companion magazine. I really enjoyed knowing Mary, and she and I are still friends to this day. You know, not close. I don't go over there and see her, but I'm sure if I was over there, she'd say, yeah, come on over. Please come over. But Mary, if you know Mary Engelbreit's work, and if you don't, Google her, you'll see it all over the place. She has a very distinct style. She has an irreverent sense of humor, and she has a line of cards called the Engel Dark line. That's her irreverent sense of humor. She's very outspoken, so just know that about her. But her illustrations, I got to do, it was an artist dream job, a person for me. I mean, at Hallmark, everybody dreamed of illustrating children's books. That was kind of like everybody's aspiration. I got to illustrate children's books working for Mary. There are a whole line of them, the Anna Stell books that she and I worked on together. She would send me her rough sketches, and I would tighten them up and do the line work and even color them in with colored pencils and markers. That was the medium we worked in. I helped her with calendar illustrations. She did all of the greeting cards and all of the calendar illustrations, but there was spot art that we had to do and lettering. I've always had a love of lettering, as I alluded to when I talked about my red French sampler, but I got to do hand lettering. I designed or did some drawings for three-dimensional products. They were like some kitchenware. I have a cookie jar that I still have to this day that I designed, did the drawings for. What else have I done for her? All sorts of things. But the children's book illustrations and the paper dolls are the things I think were the most fun. But I mean, every day I got to go to a room in my own house. I worked freelance for her. At first I worked for her full-time long distance because she was in St. Louis and I was living in Weston. I lived right outside of town at this point. I was married and couldn't move because of my husband's work. And we'd established a long distance working relationship because I met her at Hallmark. I worked on some of her stuff while I was still at Hallmark. So she knew what I was capable of and how to communicate with me. And then after my divorce, she wanted me to work there, move to St. Louis. And I just really didn't feel like my life was in St. Louis. And so we parted ways for a little bit, but quickly they called me back and said, hey, how about if we work out a contract freelance relationship? So that's what worked for us for nearly 19 years, is that I would get work from them every month. They paid me a set price every month, and it was on them to provide me work that was commensurate with what they were paying me. It was kind of a retainer that they paid me. It paid my bills and then some, and I would go to one of the bedrooms in the house I made into my art studio, and every day I would go in there and sit down and work. I had schedules and deadlines, and we communicated through email and faxes and FedEx. They would tell me what they wanted me to do. I would get written assignments. We'd talk on the phone regularly, and I got to do a lot of fun stuff. So it was a really wonderful, wonderful job while it lasted. And it was economic reasons that it didn't last longer, I think. So anyway, that's my Mary Engelbright story. Next question, do you wrap your hoops? What is your favorite hoop to stitch with? No. The first answer, do you wrap your hoops? No. Favorite hoop to stitch with is a Nerge. I have one. My favorite hoop to stitch with is this guy right here. It's a Nerge hoop. This is the number 2. 145 millimeter by 165. This one just feels good in my hand. I do have a full set of Nerge hoops. I sometimes use this one that's a little bit larger, the number 3, but primarily the number 2. I think this is maybe about, I'm gonna say 6 or 7 inches across. That's what I do most of my stitching with. I like them because the tension I can get on my fabric. I like to stitch with tight tension on my linen, and these grip well, and so that's what I use. So you don't need to wrap a Nerge. I do have a couple of antique hoops that I sometimes stitch with. One I do wrap just simply because it has stretched out enough that I can't get the tension that I like in that old hoop. And another one, I have an antique hoop. I can get good enough tension, so I don't have to wrap that one. But I would if I needed to. I just thought while we were talking favorite tools, I would tell you some of my other ones that I use all the time. These. If you've seen my Instagram page, you know I roll up my excess fabric. I don't like it dangling all over the place. I use these Goody hair clips. I use these to hold the excess fabric. These larger like quilt clips we were given at Sampler Symposium this year. I love these. So these hold fabric too. I also use these magnetic cable ties. These are, I believe, Smart and Cool magnetic cable ties to hold my fabric. And so between the clips and the cable ties, I have all my fabric out of the way. I just don't like it dangling about. And then the other tool I can't live without are good old clothespins. I work from a paper chart and I fold the paper chart. I tape the pieces together because I like to work in areas. If it's not on the whole thing of doing a page at a time, I can't do that. I need to work across or certain areas, and if it's not on the page, I just make photocopies, tape the pages together, and then I work in the area that I want to work in, and I fold up the excess, and I use clothespins to hold those. My favorite needles, for those of you who were wondering but didn't ask that question, are Colonial Petite needles, size 28. Because that works on the higher count fabric. I get them in a jar. I think there are 20 in this jar. I can't remember where I got these. I might have gotten these on Etsy, but I've also purchased them at some stores before. So Colonial Petites, my favorite needles. So let's see. Where did you grow up? Do you have siblings? Are your parents still alive? What did your dad do? Did your mom do crafts? I grew up in Northwest Illinois, a little town called Warren. I have 3 siblings. I have an older brother and 2 younger sisters. One sister who's just a year and a half younger than me, and another sister who's 9 years younger than me. My parents are not still alive. My dad passed away in 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic. It wasn't COVID related, but he had some health issues. He died then. And my mom is gone too. She passed away in 2022 of complications of cancer. My dad, everybody would say he was the artist. That's where I inherited my artistic talent from. But I would say my mom was an artist in her own right because she did the needlework and she did exceptional embroidery and cross stitch and sewing and quilting. But my dad worked for DeKalb Seed Corn Company. He was an inspector there and retired from there. But he also drew, and in his spare time, he was a taxidermist. I have a couple of his taxidermied animals here in my apartment as because I used to watch him do that. I used to sit on a stool beside his workbench and watch him work on that. Taxidermy is an amazing art in its own right. You have to be a keen observer, obviously, of wildlife. You have to be able to sculpt because the inside of an animal gets taken out and you only have the outside left. So you do buy styrofoam type of forms that go inside, but they're not going to be accurate to the individual animal that you're working on. So there was it was necessary to add to those forms. You had to be able to sculpt the anatomy of the animal. And then you had to create kind of a little diorama or scene that put the animal in, just a base and some, greenery, leaves, wood. And his favorite thing to do was fish. And that was because he got to repaint them. When you go fishing, if you have ever been fishing, nearly as soon as you take a fish out of the water, and especially once they die, their color starts to fade. And so they have to be repainted in order to preserve their colors. And he loved to do that. So that was what Dad did. My mom always she worked at a bank too, or she worked in a couple of different retail places, but crafts, as I said before, yeah, we were always making stuff, all sorts of stuff. So next question, have you always had short hair? I'm going to answer this one and one other one that was the most frequently asked, so I get them out of the way. So first of all, have I always had short hair? No, but for most of my adult life, yes. Up until 6th grade, I had hair that went all the way down to my behind, and it was a lot to take care of. I cut it gradually shortened over the years, but I cut it short for the first time probably 1988 or 9 when Annie Lennox of the Eurythmics came on the scene. She had really short hair. And I just got a wild hair and said, I want a haircut like that. So ever since then, I've had short hair. It's always been in, variations of a similar cut to what you see now. And I've said before, I'm a cancer survivor. So there was a period of time in my life where I had no hair. And that was fine. It was a little traumatic, even having hair this short for so many years. Losing your hair is a little traumatic, but I was bald for a while, but for the most part, yeah, always short hair. The other question that came up, 3 or 4 different people asked this. They said, I notice you always wear mismatched earrings. Why? Tell me about that. I actually always wear this one, the cross, and then this side changes. I've got about, I think, 6 or 8 different ones that I wear over here. But this one is a silver cross that is Navajo made. I got it at a store here in Weston, so it's handmade. I think I probably got this in about, I'm gonna guess, 1991, 92, when I was really heavily into doing at the early stages of my exploration with Native American spirituality and beadwork and such. I got this, and a few years after that, I lost the mate. And I was sad because I loved this pair of earrings. And I decided, well, I'm going to continue wearing this and just put something on the other side. And I wear it on this side all the time because this is a side that I had a mastectomy on. And I'm still here and kicking nearly 25 years later. So it's just kind of a symbolic thing too for me, and a gratitude for still being here. And then, so everything I wear on this side generally complements this one. This particular one is also a native silver. This is a vintage. I think it's meant to be a blueberry. And then I usually always wear this little turquoise. I have two different small turquoise posts that I wear in that third earring. But they're just always things that mean something to me. And I'm running long. So I'm going to pull one more, and then I'm going to save the rest for another time because that's a lot still. But this is another question that I get asked periodically. And so we'll close on this. It says, do you have any inclination to design your own charts? Never say never, but yes and no. I have, since I've spent most of my life in the commercial art of one type or another, I know what it's like to create art on deadlines. And I'm actually not interested in doing that again. This hobby of cross stitching, I really enjoy. And again, since I've always been in most of my life, I've done something with the arts that I've gotten paid for. It takes some of the joy out of it when you have to think about, is this marketable? What will the consumer think? And you start putting it, what does somebody want? What niche do I need to fill? What needs to be done? So for me, that I think, because it's happened in the past, it takes some of the joy out of the creative process. Other people I know have different experience of it. I'm so glad because we have so many beautiful things that we can stitch because people are designing charts. So right now I don't think so. But, you know, a year and a half ago, I didn't know I would be sitting in front of a camera doing FlossTube. If somebody had said, do you think you would ever be on YouTube? I would have said, no, no, but here I am. So I'm not going to say no. But also, and the reason I'm saying that is because I would love to design something that has Archie on it and my other dog, Bonnie Rose, that I mentioned. I have an idea for something like that. My friend Sarah Stitchy Spot, has a motto that she's been talking about a lot this year that says, never admire quietly. And I thought about doing something for her. Somebody else has helped her out with that, but I still have that in the back of my mind. I sketched something. I've just never made it into a chart. My friend Gretchen, who has the shop Floraligium, she has a collection of antique Berlin woolwork charts that she and I have actually kicked around the idea of reproducing some of those and bringing to the cross-stitch market. And she's talked to me about that. I have an idea for an animal cracker inspired animal that would be Archie. I can see one of those with a Scotty dressed in a kilt. So I might have to do that. So that's why I say, I don't know, but maybe. So anyway, there we go. And I don't want to step on Stacey Nash's toes. I think I could do it, and I think it would be cute. So I might for myself. So anyway, that's our Q&A. And like I said, I'll save the other ones because there were quite a few, and I'll just every now and then answer one of those. So I do appreciate those of you who gave me questions to answer. You had me thinking about some fun things like, when did I start cross-stitching? I had to come up with when was that? Had me thinking about some of my history at Hallmark that I hadn't thought about for a while. So I appreciate all of those questions that you all asked. So thank you again for everything that you have given me over the last year. the support that you have offered. I thought maybe I might get, I was going to be happy with 15 subscribers. I had no idea this channel would blow up the way it did so quickly, and I have one person in particular to thank for that, and I believe that to be Brenda, the Brenda of Brendan the Serial Starter. When I posted on Instagram that I had uploaded my first video, she watched it, and on her Instagram page told everybody, stop what you're doing, watch this person's YouTube, you won't be sorry. So thank you, Brenda. And I also want to thank Shelly Fry of Antique Needleworkers. She's been a huge supporter of me and my channel. And if it weren't for her first floss tube, that's what I saw. And that's what made me think, man, cross-stitching has changed. Listen to her and her friend talk about this hobby that is nothing like I ever remember it being. And Shelly and I have been in contact. I consider her a supporter of me and my channel, and I want to thank her. And all of you who I have come to know over the past year, who I've met at retreat, at Sampler Symposium, or who have come to visit me when I've hosted those little mini Stitch With Me days at Florilegium. You blow me away by showing up, and the things that you ask me and the things that you learn from me or listen to what I'm saying and what you get out of it and share with me. Peg, thank you. Sarah, the Sarahs, Stitchy Spot and Somi, Marie and Angie from Stitch Across the Pond. All the ladies from Stitch Across the Pond, my now Friday night Zoom group that I am part of. Thank you, everybody. I figured I would cry because it's hard for me to get through a video without getting emotional, but just thank you, everybody. I have no idea. I had no idea I would be sitting here a year later, having had the amazing experiences and made the friendships and relationships that I have. And I really look forward to whatever comes next. I'll still be showing up here every 3 or 4 weeks. I start getting antsy at the 3-week point, so that's why it's usually 3 weeks. I feel like I have something to share. And Archie will continue to come on and say hi in his silly little ways. He's such a special little guy. So thank you all for embracing me and this channel, and for receiving comfort from what I have to share, as I receive comfort from this hobby that we all have in common. The reason for the name of the channel, Comfort Stitching, is because that's what it does for so many of us. And that's what I wanted to be able to talk about with my channel. I wasn't hearing that in other places. Yeah, people talk about the beautiful things they're doing or where they've been and stuff, but I like to know, why are you stitching the things that you do? I like to share why I'm stitching the things that I do, what I'm getting out of it. It's like I said, a contemplative practice for me. Being somebody who used to be a yoga teacher, I'm not doing that now, but the mindfulness I do still bring to my life, and it definitely is part of what I receive and put through into the projects that I stitch. So thank you all again for sharing all of that. And with that said, I have a closing thought that I want to leave you with today, which I often do. So for a long time, I've been a follower of a woman named Kathy Hay on YouTube. She is a needleworker. She specializes in historical costuming and researching and recreating historical clothing. And currently she's working on recreating an amazing coat. I believe it's made by the House of Worth. But Kathy has a very spiritual quality to her. as well. And she's been on kind of a spiritual journey lately. Her life has made some pretty dramatic changes over the last few years. But recently she posted a reel on her Instagram page, and it's been shared a lot, but I asked her permission to transcribe what it was she said in the reel so I could share it with you, and she graciously did that. So I want to read this by Kathy Hay. There is something ancient in the act of making. A needle passes through fabric, and a moment passes through time. For thousands of years, hands like ours have stitched, woven, mended, crafted, not just cloth, but meaning. But we've forgotten that, haven't we? We've made a creation a race, a performance. We scroll past it. We speed through it. But when you slow down, when you breathe, when you let your hands move without force, something opens, something older than memory. Maybe it's not just about the stitches. Maybe it never was. So I want to thank Kathy for that. I think when we do our stitching, we are tapping into something that is deeper than just the immediate stitch on the fabric. Something that connects us so far to the past and connects us to each other. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up for me, supporting me, and Archie. And we will continue to show up for you. I look forward to our next visit and sharing whatever might come up. So thank you so much, everybody. And here's to a year. If you want to enter the giveaway, the keyword is strawberry. I'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody.